I never would have noticed the anomaly if it hadn't been for a printer jam. That's how things start, I guess. Incidents so bland, they barely register until you look back and realize where it all pivoted. It was the second Thursday of August. Brutally hot, even in the fluorescent-drenched coolness of the Metro Access office inside Union Station, Washington, D.C. I run intake for the Metro Assist system, a service designed for aging or disabled passengers who need ride routing help, real-time announcements, or guidance during disrupted service. Honestly, it's mostly rerouting calls, elevator outage alerts, and helping people read the screens when the displays freeze or blue screen. That day, I was printing a revised accessibility map for the Red Line. A new construction zone near the medical center stop had knocked out an elevator. The printer ratcheted out half a page and stopped, whining its little death sigh and blinking, "Paper jam slot B1." I opened its bowels and pulled the twisted page out. But it hadn't jammed. The sheet was clean, no tears or bends. Still, the printer reset and reprinted perfectly. So I filed it away as one of those incidental hiccups, a stupid machine stuttering under fluorescent fatigue. But the paper it had printed, only a half page finished, stuck in my mind. I'd caught a half-numbered platform marked 19, which made no sense. There's no platform 19. Union Station ends at 17 unless you count Metro's underground platforms, which are lettered differently and max out around 3. But the document header was Metro Assist generated, bearing my own ID stamp. I was tired, I told myself. Someone had plugged in a dummy layer into the system, something from the coordination maps we use for hypotheticals. Flood evacuations, triple track service. That week, all the local operators had been running on summer schedules, skeleton staffing. It could have been a test map someone forgot to scrub. That rationalization held up until I spotted it again in a real-time feed 2 days later. It was Saturday afternoon. I was monitoring the live crowd metrics at the Judiciary Square station. We'd been calibrating the station density models after complaints from a few regulars about crowd surges not matching the posted alerts. We use a platform analytics system that calculates pressure zones and exit delays based on turnstile usage, escalator sensors, and infrared body counts. A stitched-together lattice of stale data acting like it's fresh. I was mapping the exits, predicting dispersals, when I zoomed out too far on the live congestion heat map and saw a warm spot where there should be no platform. A mild concentration of body heat replicas hovering somewhere below L'Enfant Plaza. The heat signature floated like a smudge, not large but consistent, threading along an unused spur on the archival rail map. At first I assumed it was a calibration ghost. Those happen more than we admit. The sensors crosstalk or pull old data ghosts from cache memory, but the system wouldn't let me deselect it. I toggled off ghost layers and hypothetical overlays. Still there. Hard orange blob clinging to a corridor stub that shouldn't even be energized. I traced its coordinates manually. The metrics showed about 14 people, brief spikes, consistent with foot traffic, and the lag between one cluster dispersing and another forming. Commuters. Or something modeling commuters with unintelligible precision. I didn't say anything to my supervisor, I just watched. Twice a day, at seemingly randomized but eerily symmetrical times, around 2:06 a.m. and 2:06 p.m., this corridor populated and flushed. The pressure sensors registered doors opening, though there were none in the schema. The infrared lattice counted bodies entering and exiting zones adjacent to nothing. Then, as suddenly as it came, the signal resettled to cold. By Wednesday, I was tracking it on my own time. I'd mapped its apparent access point, a stairwell ghosted on a 1993 blueprint but never marked in current overlays, tucked behind a vending alcove between Gallery Place Chinatown and Metro Center. I walked the platform 3 times over 2 days. There was no stairwell. Yet the surveillance camera line of sight glitched slightly on frame 1388 through 1394 every morning when I reviewed the 6 a.m. open footage. A tiny stutter at the hallway's vanishing point where nothing moved, as though it digitally blinked and rewrote itself. If you paused too late or too early, nothing showed. If you clipped it exactly in those 6 frames, the hallway's depth was subtly longer. One more shadow, a slight echo deeper than the architecture allowed. I requested a camera servicing ticket, citing noise artifacts. The maintenance team flagged no hardware error, just unpredictable echo from adjacent Wi-Fi frequency overlap, a term that meant nothing. What overlap? The corridor abuts steel infrastructure and a thick concrete buffer. There shouldn't be signal bleed through. That became my way in. I loaded inspector tags into the access network, giving myself wireless signal diagnostics as if I were testing onboard train Wi-Fi. I slotted a beacon app into a nondescript field phone, the kind we issue to new Metro Assist field liaisons with big fonts and stripped down browser access. I carried that phone with me when I volunteered to ride outbound runs in the afternoon during staffing shortages. Nobody questions extra coverage. I boarded southbound on the Yellow Line around 1:48 p.m. Friday, feeling stupidly paranoid. The phone's signal tracker blipped the way I knew it would. As the train descended beneath the mall and past the dim-lit cavities of overlooked interconnects, the device chimed low, short ping, like sonar missing its echo, signaling a handshake with my unauthenticated beacon. It registered a broadcast SSID, MTP-19 vestibule. None of our routes or test zones use that tag. Even our maintenance vestibules follow MNT MAUS or TMP AUX notation. But here it was again, tethering for 2 minutes and 12 seconds on frequency 2.432 GHz, then gone. Like stepping past a forgotten door frame you don't remember building. That night I pulled the 4 most recent ride logs from riders with digital Metro cards who had triggered exit gates near that intersection within 5 minutes of the anomaly. Every pass card logs a 16-digit ID, travel time, and occasionally internal accelerometer metrics if the phone's gyroscope syncs through WMATA's app for step counting and mobility metrics, ostensibly for personalized trip logging. Few riders know that. Each of the 4 IDs had an identical signature event, a 6-minute lull mid-trip where their personal acceleration signature flatlined as if they stopped moving on a moving train. The first time I examined it, I assumed disconnection from the cell signal, but 2 showed active data usage during that lull. Someone browsing Spotify and another watching a YouTube video. The system around them moved, shook, braked, but they did not. No change in device orientation, no micro tilt from centrifugal load, as though they were not riding, as though they weren't anywhere. That weekend I returned, Sunday at 1:51 p.m. I boarded from L'Enfant Plaza this time, transferring from the orange line to yellow, so I wouldn't begin exactly at the origin point. I brought no phone. I wore an inspector badge and carried a laminated outage report to reduce questioning if security looked at me. I sat back third car, left side, near the HVAC duct. As the train passed under the west foundations of the National Gallery, everything slowed. The windows darkened too far too quickly. Not the natural tunnel blackness, but blown-out pixels as though the light collapse was misrendered. A half-second of total gray, not shade. I glanced at the onboard digital route tracker. It had jumped backward. Instead of reading approaching Smithsonian, it flashed DuPont before erasing. I tried to blink it off. Heat flushed up through the floor, the mechanical underfloor where the friction resistance usually just vibrates, but now it felt unnaturally warm. Not in a rising way, more like it had been warm for hours, as though the train had looped there in longest silence. The woman across from me had not blinked. She looked locked forward, not catatonic but rehearsed, as if feigning passenger dumb. She wore a Gallaudet sweatshirt and held her phone to display brightness 0, screen blank, staring into it anyway. When we reached Archives Navy Memorial, she did not exit. Instead, she rose from her seat and walked against the flow of foot traffic, not stepping out but sliding into the brief exhale of people exiting. She turned left into the corner alcove of the platform wall and seemed to sink from view. I followed 5 seconds later and found no door. Wall. Seamless concrete. But it was warmer. The tiles' variation slightly different. 2 shades paler than surrounding ones. Almost like they'd been replaced recently, but weren't matched right. They reflected no fluorescence from the overheads. I didn't see her again. But later, pulling movement data archive logs for the station, I found a 7th anomaly signature. Flatlined movement within platform bounds, followed by the data tag, blinking out entirely without exit confirmation. Not just rerouted, deleted. Over the next 2 weeks, the access corridor fed in and out of my sightline like a retinal burn catching just past focus. The ambient cameras in Gallery Place began showing timestamp discrepancies. Platform 3 would register footfall 8 seconds ahead of the south vestibule sensor, even when nobody was walking. The audio sync drifted. One clip showed a woman shouting before her mouth opened, though the feed ran real-time. Frame rates remained stable. It wasn't a buffer lag. It was temporal sequence error. I started sleeping in the security lounge of Union Station on double shifts. I was up there when I noticed the surveyor. 3 consecutive days, same time, always leaning into a corner-backed payphone cubby, now sealed with plexiglass. He faced inward, left shoulder tucked hard into the corner, as if listening to something behind the wall. Not through it, behind it. The surveyor wore no pass, no tools, no clipboard, just a spiral-bound memo book and a busted transit radio, no antenna. Once I made eye contact, he turned fast and caught me, and my ears popped, as though the pressure in the station dropped by half for just an instant. Eventually I took leave. No firing, no scandal, just personal family leave, pending reassignment. But I still check the Metro app once a day just to see if the vestibule pings. And a week ago, one of the crowd density metrics at McPherson Square hit yellow alert on a holiday with 0 ridership. The density markers showed 17 people forming a 16-foot arc just outside the sealed corridor that hadn't been used since 1992. Their heat signature formed a perfect crescent, not stationary, not paired like waiting passengers, but arranged like an absence that understood form. One unfurling geometry. Then, 30 seconds later, the alert vanished. 2 days later, a report surfaced. One rider purged from the fare records entirely. Her card hadn't failed, her trips weren't erased. Her existence in the back-end registry had been revoked. Every card interaction now ended in a 404 type error. She'd been brute deleted. Then, 18 minutes after that, the density count spiked again, perfectly matching that streak. So I've stopped riding altogether. I won't go within 3 blocks of an active tunnel line. I don't answer survey requests, don't keep the Metro card anymore. And I won't say her name or guess at which moment started it all. Whose decision it was to add a platform 19 when the city only needed 17. But even now, on overcast days, I wake up feeling low-frequency tremors under the city grid. And some nights I see that door, just the outline, in my hallway at home, between the coat closet and the water heater, where no door has ever been.